Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hey, it's Joanna Hunter here from joannahunter.com, and we have got a very special Into the LightWeb podcast episode for you. And this is an episode for the $1 Million Lab. OMG, we're on our third roundup of incredible guests that we have had on the podcast since we began. So this is the third roundup, and I can't wait to introduce these clips from some incredible podcasts that we have had over the last quarter of the year. So without further ado, let's dive in. So my first clip is with Bryan Clayton, and he's talking about evolution and moving up in increments. So I hope that you enjoy this clip with Bryan.
I think one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is that it can be your vehicle in life to take you to places you never would have been able to go. And that's certainly what business ownership has been for me. It can be the thing that you can build to make something of yourself. And if you're doing business right, every 3 or 4 years, you should evolve as a completely different person. You should completely evolve into somebody who's more humble, wiser, smarter, better leader, better manager. And certainly it's been the case for me in 22 years of entrepreneurship. And that was he's like, that was a surreal moment. Could you imagine it was happening? And for me, it was like, it was 15 years. It was little by little going through every level of the metaphorical video game of business. And for me, when I got to the point I was ready to sell, that was the world I was living in. That was the world I progressed to. And it was very real. It was this is where we're at. This is where we've gotten to. This is what we're doing. This is what other companies are selling for. So it was a very pragmatic thing. There wasn't like an overnight success or one move on the chessboard that got me from here to here. It was very much incremental over a long period of time. So it was a very real thing. And now GreenPal, my current business, we're doing multiple 8 figures a year in revenue. But when we first started 8 years ago, we ended our first year with 50 customers and $10,000 in total revenue. And so now here we are, almost decade later, we're doing multiple 8 figures. And it's like, and people ask me, do you ever just pinch yourself and look back and see how far you come? And the answer is no, because it's like there was never any one move that got us here. It's like, this is where we have grinded our butts off to get here. This is very real. And it still feels like day one. It always feels like day one. It always feels like you have so much further to go. And that's one of the cool things about business. It is like a video game. It's like you go level 1 of Super Mario World is very different to level 9 and 10. And the problem is people are on level 1 and 2 and they're worried about Bowser. And you really shouldn't. It's like just work your way through the levels, however you define them, and just make incremental progress and do it for a long time, and you'll build something.
For my second clip in this roundup episode of the $1 Million Lab, I have got Dr. Alicia Macpherson, and she's talking about feminine power and working to your feminine cycle. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, or this little snippet of Alicia's episode.
One, it's been quality of life for me when making the decision, because I'm a hustler. I'm a worker. I grew up on a farm. My parents are like, if you're not working, you're lazy. So that's always been in my head. And so I had to look at what do I want my quality of life to be like? Sure, I probably can make lots of money pushing, but what is that going to look like? Am I going to have the vacations? Am I going to have the relationships that I want? Am I going to have the quality of life? And that was a really turning point for me to say, no, I want to be able to take time off when I want. I want to be able to go on vacations. I want that feeling in building my business. And that is really what anchored me into trusting that the feminine power way is the way that it's going to go. But for most women, what I tend to get them to do is track their cycles and understand the phases that they're in, if it's follicular, if it's ovulation, luteal, menstruation, because each phase holds such a power and such a wisdom, and there's a body screaming at you in each phase on what you need to do, especially in your entrepreneurship, but also in your lifestyle. So there's certain points when your body actually wants you to take a moment and probably nap or watch Netflix or read a book, and we tend to ignore that and push. And what that does is, because in different parts of your cycle your stress response increases, you're going to get heightened cortisol. That's going to cause blood sugar issues. Now you've got cravings. Now you're tired. Now we're burnt out. So I get women to really dive into understanding where they are so that they can start making those connections. What's your energy like in follicular? What's it like in ovulation? How's your mood? Some parts of our cycle, it's the best time to launch a product because you are so uplifting, you're so positive, you're so confident, you're so like ready to get out there. Whereas other parts, you're really inward. So your energy drops, your mood goes in, your intuition is very heightened, but probably not the best time to launch a new product. So I really work with them on how to understand the changes in energy and mood and your confidence and how you show up, and how to align your business with that so that you're working with that flow instead of saying, okay, it's menstruation, I'm tired, but you know what? I'm going to launch this thing because I want to make more money. Instead of trusting, if you wait a week, you're going to have so much energy, it's just going to flow out of you so effortlessly.
For our third clip, I have got Tanja Hausfelder, and we're talking about the fight or flight response. And I have to tell you, this podcast episode was absolute gold. Tanja shared so many incredible insights in this episode, so it was very hard to choose which piece that we wanted to share, but we've gone with this one.
Stress is a good thing because it's one of those, our instincts. When there was this tiger or a wild animal running behind us, we need just to, fighting wasn't an idea, we need to flee. But there is those instincts of fight or flight, and for sure there's the other one like freeze. Yeah. But fight, flight, you need your hands, we need our legs. So all the blood, the body, all the blood gets in this, the hands and the legs to run, because the other organs, even the brain, the heart, the liver, all those, they are not fully supported. And when you are on a continuous stress level, that's why all the body get in different illnesses, because they are not supported, they're not supplied from the whole system. You are also our brain that only knows then one way to act. And we always think the things we see, we have to flee, to fight against. And it's the space that I said. Sometimes it's just a moment. Or there are easy tricks to my nieces. I always say, before you shout, before you run away, before you do a tantrum, cross the fingers, or just do something, touch yourself, create a gesture that reminds you, like, wake up. Even in the car sometimes, I also, I need to, and then I just, and then it's like a wake up for me. And then, okay, that reminds me to get in the head again, because neuroscience has proven so many things, even the optical one that we see, what we hear, our brain, even if you and I have a look at the same sky or the same tree, there isn't a need that it's the same for us. Because it could be a picture, a memory, it could be a dream, or reality. And the part in our brain that is distinguishing this is just moving small little parts. So whatever we see, it's just a chemical explosion in our mind with an electrical loading. But there is never a direct connection, nor to the thing, nor to the event. So that's like we create it in our mind. And that's like why I always say, we are not in the world. The world is in us. What we see, what we perceive, what we talk about, how we feel it. And when I was saying, I wanted to say this in this call, because this fascinated me. You have written there, your magic called you here. I will help you harness it to be, do, and have it all. And that's actually something that creates the biggest stress for us, because people don't do, now be, do, have. We always tell ourselves, I need to have this. I need to have more money. I need to have a bigger house. I need to lose 10, 20 pounds. I need to get rid of this. Then I need to have this.
So far out the being.
And they say, I can have this, then I can do that, and then I can be. And it's actually the opposite, like, and that was so nice, because I always say, be, we are already, but we just live a small little part of what we're really able to. We be, and we can do anything, and then we can have it all, because there are no limits. The only thing is, are we willing to take the self-responsibility and also to do the things, because it's a continuous, it's like, I call it also self-disruption, because nature doesn't do only the small movements, like they do huge evolution steps, and that's also what we are doing. It's sometimes, I work with a lot of high achiever, that's why for leading heads also, but it's like sometimes the smallest mindset course correction can change everything.
For our fourth clip, we have Leah Remillét, who is talking about working with intention versus the risk of working too many hours. So this is something that me and her have both shared, this massive burnout. So it's a really interesting episode, and I think you're going to enjoy this clip.
I've had the opportunity to speak at a lot of different events. And one of the things that I started to see, and why I became so passionate on, where I really help entrepreneurs, where I help women, is let's get you organized. Let's build the systems. Let's let you feel really confident when you're in your business and really confident when you're at home, and get these in the right order so that you can make that money, because I'm going to admit, I really like making money, right? Like, it's pretty nice to not have to worry about those things, but simultaneously not at the expense of what matters most, who matters most, right? And when I would be speaking at these events, my absolute favorite part of getting to speak at any of these is at night. It's when it's all over and everybody's just together talking, and the walls start coming down. And one of the things I started recognizing and realizing, and this was after my burnout, this was me like coming out on the other end, building the systems, learning. So I went from working, I have no idea how many hours, because I wasn't trying to track and know how much I was actually working, because I didn't want to admit that, right? So I don't know, but 80 hours a week, maybe. I don't know, but an insane amount. Basically, I was never not working. Even when I said I wasn't working, I was working, right? And so I went from that.
Bring it home, or the thought process is constantly there.
Yes, and I'm sneaking away all the time to just check on something, to fix something, to work on something. So I went from that to 15 to 20 hours a week, and I did not lose a penny of our profit. That was mind-blowing. Like, I was like, oh, okay, wait. I was constantly being busy, but not productive. I was, all in, all over, everywhere, but I wasn't intentional. So once I learned, okay, wait, how do I be productive? How do I be intentional? And so, I'd be at these conferences, and all the women would start talking, and inevitably the walls come down, and they start sharing that, we're all in this together. We're all feeling the same angst, the same anxiety, the same guilt, the same pressure, the same exhaustion. They were all feeling those same feelings of, oh my gosh, I am trying to be the best at all of this. And I don't even know what else to give. And I feel like I'm a failure at all of it. And it was the fellow women speaking with me. It was the women attending. It was, the women that everyone's putting on the pedestal. And when she's talking with me one-on-one, she's breaking down and admitting, like, tell me how you're doing this, because I'm dying. Like, that I'm worried about my marriage. I'm worried about my relationship with my children. I feel like I'm constantly angry. So, I want to say that because I think we first have to understand you're not alone. People don't want to share it because they're so worried. The perception on social media is that everybody's got it together. So no one wants to raise their hand and go, I'm the hot mess. Like, am I the only one here? Right? So I started recognizing and seeing, oh, this is across the board. It's across industries. It's across, like, this is when you are trying to be all of these different things, you know, those statistics about we as women, we're still doing all the things at home too, right? Like we're still the primary person making the doctor's appointments, doing the grocery shopping, taking care of the chores and things, and we're running companies and businesses. And so just knowing like this is something that we're in together, especially as women entrepreneurs, women with careers who are really trying to grow and build. And so knowing that, it's like, okay, if we can talk about this, be honest about it, and then we need our own kind of systems. You know, after this all happened for me, I started studying systems. I mean, I became obsessed with, okay, you can kind of tell I'm an all-in person, go crazy for whatever, right? It can be a blessing and a curse. And so I went all in. And one of the things I really realized is a lot of what's being taught is being taught by men, or it's being taught for a corporation. And so I needed to take all of it. And then I started testing. And then I started, once it was working for me, testing with my clients to be like, okay, wait, but what actually works for women entrepreneurs? Because we're a different beast. Like it's a different animal, what we are doing.
For my next episode, episode 5 in this series, we are sharing, or clip 5 in this series, we're sharing Lisa Johnson, and she's giving us a little insight to passive income, or is that passive income? Take it away, Lisa.
So with I have a tripwire. So on my lead magnet, there's a tripwire. That's a little course I made maybe 3 years ago about creating communities. And it's really cheap, like £49 or something like that. But that £49 product that I don't deliver, it just DIY, you know, it's been made years ago. That makes me my entire ad spend every single month. So it's self-liquidating. That's where passive can really come in well. And it just means, you know, if I was to do something, so if somebody came to me now and said, oh, I want to do one-to-one, I don't do any one-to-one, but if someone came to me and said one-to-one, I could probably charge them for 10 hours work, I don't know, 20,000. You couldn't really do much more than 20 or 30,000. Whereas if I do a course, that's still 10 hours of my time, but that's going to make me 2.5 million. So it makes more sense to me to, you know, do things, especially once you've got an audience, to do things that do leverage your time, because you can impact more people. As well as make more money, you can impact more people. And that's a big thing. So yeah, it's not, you know, this whole passive thing. And in every single webinar I ever do, I start with, can we just get rid of the fact that you think that you're going to be doing making a lot of money and you're not going to be doing any work, because that isn't true.
This next episode was with Antonio Martinez, and I really loved the raw and honest conversation that we had in this episode. And it was all about this whole fake it till you make it culture that is so prevalent in the online world and the perils of that. And I really love the raw honesty of this conversation that we had. I think it's an incredibly important conversation. So if you wanted to catch the full episode, we'll definitely link it in the show notes for you.
And although this experience brought me, you know, to a very dark place, and it made me lose my successful business along with my reputations, because you know, YouTube flooded with videos accusing me and insulting me. I still get some people messaging me about what a fraud I am, what a scam I am, and whatever. I still get messages from those people, even though it's been 2 years since that happened. But that experience led me to reconcile myself with you know, with the concept, with what I think about myself and how I feel about myself. That led me to feel like I am a better person now, because now I know that everything that comes out of my mouth, it's the truth. And that feeling is so liberating, to have nothing to hide. You know, you have nothing to hide, and that's a burden that I didn't even have. I didn't even know I had, because you get used to live with lying and trying to you know, to protect those lies with more lies. It's a spiral, a deadly spiral.
It is an absolutely downward spiral. This next clip has got Jeremy Minor in it, and we're talking about how much it's costing you if you are not learning the right skills. And this was such an interesting look at the world and such an interesting way to look at maybe investing in yourself as well. So I really love this clip, and get your pen and paper out. You're probably going to want to do this example that he has given us.
Yeah, when we speak at events, live events before COVID and now pretty much, virtual. I think there's some live events we're doing. Yeah, first live events in November again. But, we always ask the audience at the very end, what is your biggest expense in life? Like point blank. And people are like, oh, my mortgage payment, or my kids are really expensive, or taxes, or this or that. And we're like, yeah, that's true. But what's your biggest expense? Nobody ever comes up with it. And you hit it right on the head. Your biggest expense in life is your lack of knowledge of learning the right skills required for you, like you train and coach, to become a millionaire. That's your biggest expense. Nothing else. Your biggest expense is your lack of knowledge of acquiring those skills to get to that $1 million level like you talk about. So we always do this exercise, especially with salespeople. Let's say that everybody on here wants to become a millionaire. So you take down on a piece of paper, write down what you made last year as your income. Everybody listen to this, right? Grab a pen and piece of paper. How much did you make last year? Let's say that you were an above average earner and you made 80,000 American dollars. I don't know what that is in English pounds, but if you guys do the translation,
60,000 pounds.
60,000 pounds. So let's say you're an above average earner. You make 60,000 pounds or 80,000 American dollars. Write that down. Now, above that, write down $1 million. Above that, write $1 million. 1,000,000. Okay. Now, subtract what you made last year from that $1 million.
Million, right?
Whatever that number is, let's say if you made 80,000, so 920,000 is the number. Circle that number and tell yourself that's your biggest expense. That's what you paid life last year because you still haven't learned the right skills that it takes, the right mindset, the right skills to be able to know how to become a millionaire and make $1 million a year. That's your biggest expense. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing to keep paying life every single year, another 920,000 a year or whatever it is, because you're still not willing to open yourself up and learn from the right people, the skills necessary to make $1 million a year. That's your biggest expense.
The next episode that we have, or the next clip of an episode that we have, is with Tamara Loehr. And OMG, I love this woman's vibe. I loved her energy. And in this clip, she is talking about how to grow a business as a creative. And if you want my humble opinion, there is not enough information out there on being a creative when you're growing your business. I think so many people are trying so hard to fit in the norm of business. And when you're a creative, sometimes you have no choice but to go with that creative power. And it is our superpower if it's leveraged right. So please enjoy this clip with Tamara.
What I think is really interesting is I appreciate that I think creators are visionaries, but you've got to remember, in order to grow a large business and an empire, it actually needs stability. It needs structures. It needs operations. It needs all these things that you and I are both going, because as creatives, that doesn't really excite us. So we end up being magpies, it doesn't actually serve us well because we're attracted to shiny objects. So we pick up lots of things. So what I found really got me from 1 million to the 10 million to beyond, these big leaps in very short times, was my ability to stop and go, I'm a visionary. There's lots of things around me that I could create and, be involved in, but I'm going to focus on one thing. And where your focus goes, your energy flows. I'm going to focus on one thing. I'm going to bring in an integrator who does all the things that I don't want to do, which actually help drive the business as well, because it's one thing to drive it. And then having the discipline as a creative, and this is something I had to learn. It was like switching from this side of the brain to that side of the brain. I had to go, okay, you're a creative and you want to go play over here, but you don't get to play there until you've done this. So that would make me really frustrated, because I always be like, but I want to play there. And then I go, no, I have to get this business to $10 million and have the infrastructure in place to have a board and to, you know, be able to play in that sandpit. And you know what I would do? It would happen in like 2 years, because I was like, get it done. So I learned very quickly that whilst I could have 4 or 5 businesses that were doing, you know, good money each, they weren't still at the stage where I could scale them, because we all know that businesses that are an asset that don't rely on you aren't $1 million businesses. They have to go, you know, you need to get to $1 million, and then you need to put infrastructure in place. So for me, it was very much about, okay, let's get it to that first hurdle. Let's put the infrastructure in place so I can go play. So for me as a creative, it's always like, let me go play, let me go play. So it was never about the money. And I don't know about you, but I have not met many women. Actually, I'm going to make this claim. I've met no women, unless they're dressed up as men, who money is their key driver. Women, it's not our DNA. We're here for a purpose. Like, there's so many women I know that are making really good money in grey, soulless corporate jobs, and they're miserable. It's not actually what gets us out of bed every day. It's purpose. We're purpose driven, but yes, money is very essential and it gives us options. And we do not want to run somebody else's business. And there's a lot of us doing that, by the way. Women are now, 45% of women are now the breadwinners. That just says that you're running somebody else's business. So, this whole thing around why are we here? We're very purpose led. We need to feel like, our culture is good. We're helping people's lives. We're impacting families. We're impacting community. We're doing all those things. So for me, that is the key driver. So what can we do to get our business to a point where it's making good money, it's profit and purpose, so that you and I can just be in our genius every day, which is creativity. And it took me some discipline and some time to get to that point where I realized I need to do this. I need to focus. When my focus goes, my energy flows, put the infrastructure in place. That then becomes a business that makes a huge impact on lives. And then I can go play again.
In clip number 9, we have Randall Thompson talking about parenting or parental influences and the power of reframing. So this was a really powerful episode, and I hope that you enjoy this clip with Randall.
So I think it starts in my childhood. My dad, I don't want to say like super negative, but we'll say he's a realist, so to speak, and that could be perceived as a pessimist. And I think I'm a result of an overcorrection of that. One of my like all-time favorite ways of like, I don't even know what you would call it, but if you had 2 sons, right? And my dad's not an alcoholic, but like just in the example, if you had 2 sons raised by an alcoholic dad, and one becomes an alcoholic and another becomes a successful pastor of some sort, and you ask them, well, why are you the way that you are? They both are going to answer the same way and say, are you kidding me? Look at my dad. And I think that's like, there's such an important lesson in that. And that I've been fortunate that I kind of was raised by this realistic, sometimes pessimistic dad, that like, this is the way that life works. This is the way that money works. That this is the way that everything works. And for me, I said, does it? And I always had kind of like this positive, everything's going to go right. If it can go right, it will. Where my dad's like, if it can go wrong, it will. It's just an overcorrection of things. And we can constantly look at the people that are trying to influence us, and we can either absorb it or we can just kind of question it and go in the opposite
direction. Use it as the
of
contrast, like the contrast. Like, I love that.
this next guest that I had on the podcast, I have to say, I didn't know anything about her before she joined us on the podcast, but it was such an incredible pleasure to speak with this woman and a fellow multi-passionate entrepreneur. So Emily Gray gave us this clip on giving some tips on how to pitch your products to retailers. So this is if you're a maker or you have a product-based business. So this was really liquid gold. And I have to say, I have been checking out Emily's Instagram feed ever since.
So in today's noisy world, I can tell you that retailers are having a very hard time finding the brands we need and the products we need. Google is hard. Winning that SEO is hard for independent brands like we're searching for. So there's actually never been a better time to pitch retailers. I think people, at least my clients in my monthly coaching program, they every month ask, are you sure? We just feel like we're going to be bothering retailers, or retailers doing okay. We know you've been through a lot. And I'm actually like, please pitch us if you think your products will sell for us, and reach out to us because our consumers are demanding new products of us, right? Things are changing. Then I start carrying loungewear and self-care products and mental health sort of items. Okay. Now it's like, is it going to be roaring 20s or people like going out and partying? Okay. This new variant's here. So we're not sure. Okay. Now people are like completely redoing their homes and the backgrounds of their Zooms. So we need home items. We, like never before, have needed new brands and products. And the cool thing is, which will be everyone listening to this, if you sell a brand, if you have a brand, consumers want to know who's behind the brand. So standout brands to me are brands that show who they are, literally who is behind the brand. Show your face, show the behind the scenes, put yourself out there. And I know some people just did a big gulp because you don't feel safe to do that. Right? Like you don't feel safe to do that, right? But you are not safe as a brand if you do not do that in this new post-COVID economy, okay? Consumers have realized the power of their purchases. They've seen their favorite brands, stores, restaurants go under. And so now the economic trend reports are showing this. Again, I was investment banking background. I'm obsessed with data. The data supports this, that people are realizing the value of their dollar. Okay. And so they're wanting cool brands from stores. They're not looking for things that are mass produced, that are made in sweatshops, that are made by children, that are made in unfair working conditions. Yes, some people don't care about, but the trends we're seeing is more consumers are actually caring about who makes their products, where they come from, that they're eco-conscious, women-owned. Think about all these values, right?
Absolutely.
Whoever you are listening
like
to
Black
this,
owned brands,
Black-owned businesses, LGBTQ owned businesses, male-owned businesses as well. Have a cool story, right? Have a give back. Show your purpose. I think like standout. So standout brands, one, pitch us. Number two, put their face out there. Number three, show their purpose, their values, and that's at the forefront of their marketing. All right. Yeah. Because that's a standout to me. There are 1 million Black phone cases on the market, right? It's a crowded marketplace. It's noisy, but no one can be you and replicate you and your values and your integrity and the purpose you have, right? Joanna, this is what you teach people. And so putting that forth.
So for this final episode, we have Shawn Thomas, and Shawn is giving us his top tips for creating $1 million or creating a reoccurring revenue of $1 million in your life and business. So I hope you enjoy this final clip with Shawn Thomas.
If there's one thing that I could, elate to the people that are in your community that are on that 20-step plan to try to to be a millionaire, or to have $1 million, whatever that is for them, is one of the best ways to do that and grow is through subscription revenue. Instead of offering a product or service for a one-time fee, and then you have to continue to go out and find new customers, try to create kind of like what you've done, a community, a membership, some sort of subscription where someone's paying you $5 a month or $100 a month, or, whatever it might be, because then you have that base income, almost like a paycheck, that can allow you to help build your team, and you don't have to worry about finding new money every single time. It truly makes your path as an entrepreneur that much easier when you know each and every month from your subscription revenue, you've got $50,000 or $100,000 a month coming in. And you're like, whoa, like pinch me, is this real? And so, you know, I always encourage the people that are starting out on that first path to really challenge themselves to think of some things that they can do that provide ongoing value to all of their clients, customers, community, whatever it might be, and that those people will come back time and time again, and that subscription revenue just really starts accumulating each month. And then one day you wake up and you're like, I did 175,000 this month.
And would you believe that is our podcast roundup for Q3 already in the bag. We are getting ready to share some incredible guests with you in Q4 here on the $1 Million Lab in the Into the LightWeb podcast. So I am so excited to share with you new episodes coming up in Q4. This year has gone so quickly, but time flies when you're having fun.